Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. This time we're taking a look at Void Rivals number 11, the penultimate chapter of Void Rivals Volume 2. When this second arc started, we saw the series completely scale back on the Transformers elements and cameos, but they've fully made a comeback here. Issue 11 is absolutely loaded with Transformers content, which on the one hand makes sense as everything's changed after learning about Zerta-Trion and the Energon ports on the heads of the Agorians and Zertonians, so there's a sense of building up to something big in regards to the Transformers side of things, but there's also kind of a funny side to it, almost like Kirkman is making up for those Transformers references that were absent in issues 7 and 8 by inserting a flurry of them into this issue. Skuxoid returns in issue 11, setting up a new thread for the character, as well as dropping some rapid-fire references, taking us to the planet Char, a hellscape where the Decepticons retreated to in the aftermath of the '86 animated movie. Here, we're introduced to the character of Bosch from the G1 episode titled The Gambler. And we get some other name drops from that episode, including the casino asteroid called Monachus and Lord Gaikoni, who is some kind of intergalactic gangster slash fighting ring mogul who had dealings with Megatron and the Decepticons in the cartoon. And this is probably just an amusing coincidence, but we get this whole thing where Skuxoid gets the sense that an unwanted bystander is watching the meeting, an instinct that ends up being correct despite Bosch's assurances, mirroring how after arriving on Monachus, Dirge also feels like he and Ramjet are being watched, something Ramjet dismisses even though the cons are in fact being observed by Autobot bounty hunter DevCon. Like I said, most likely a coincidence, but an amusing parallel nonetheless. In this case, Skuxoid and Bosch are being observed by the same robotic-looking little dude with a cape that we saw spying on Skuxoid's previous meeting in the Energon Universe 2024 special, once again reporting in to an unknown master. I'm really looking forward to seeing who this mystery player will be and whether or not it'll be a pre-existing character from the Transformers universe or a totally new creation. I'm down to see more all-new characters personally, but it could also be cool using something from the deep bench of Transformers characters. Along with that, I'm also looking forward to seeing where we're off to next in terms of the story with Skuxoid and how that'll tie in with the main story of the comic. Maybe going to Monachus and seeing Lord Gaikoni will be a way of pulling in some Decepticons that are operating off Cybertron, or maybe DevCon will be introduced, or maybe it'll be something completely unexpected and surprising. One thing's for sure, even if it seems like it might be meandering, after following the Skuxoid as he attempts to collect the bounty on the Quintesson prosecutor and seeing how that ultimately changed the entire trajectory of the story, I would expect at this point, whatever misadventures the Skuxoid finds himself in to have similar repercussions. I never thought I would see the day where Skuxoid, of all characters, is such a prominent part of moving the plot along, but here we are. No matter how unlikely it seems, Skuxoid did move the plot along in some pretty major ways, ultimately being responsible for alerting both the Quintessons and Hot Rod of the existence of Zertonia. Something that comes to a head in this issue as we see the reappearance of Hot Rod, following up the lead that Skuxoid provided, bringing his ship to the sector of space where the Rockroid released Derek and Celila. We see Hot Rod killing time during the voyage just as he did in the animated movie after the exodus from Autobot City by sparring with some sort of training bot. And this bot is just as much of a cheap shot and a little weasel as the one in the movie, which is the cherry on top of this particular reference, I think. Hard not to get a kick out of that little jerk. I feel like this whole scene is also setting up an analog to the template to the animated movie version of Hot Rod, namely Hot Rod's actions ultimately endangering others. In the '86 movie, this was the infamous interference in the one-on-one deathmatch between Optimus and Megatron. Here, it's a bit more subtle, but will still likely have larger scale implications. Using his ship's scanners, Hot Rod is able to detect and track the energy signature from the Nebulan ship Derek and Celila used to return to the Sacred Ring. The catch here is that the Quintessons are also in this sector of space looking for clues to Zertonia. The Quintessons cloak their ship prior to Hot Rod's arrival and follow him when he begins to track the energy signature. So Hot Rod is inadvertently going to lead the Quintessons to the Sacred Ring. And I could be wrong here, but I don't expect that to end well. Regardless, I think this is a smart and fresh way of introducing some of the guilt and angst that paved the way for the character's arc in the animated movie, and seems to reflect some of the themes of redemption, forgiveness, acceptance, and purpose that are being explored in this series. For example, I would say there's something similar being done with Derek. Derek is becoming a very interesting character to me, thanks in large part to events in this issue. So far, Derek has felt somewhat overshadowed by Celila, as she is a fierce warrior with a cool weapon. She's intensely serious and loyal, but also conflicted. Celila is also the character with the more intriguing backstory, being sold to the Zertonian government to become a child soldier with her younger brother, but then she was also a member of the Keepers of Light, which leads you to that whole thing with the prophecy and her quest and the key and whatnot. In short, she's an extremely compelling character who's maybe had a little bit more time to shine than Derek so far. Derek, on the other hand, is often used almost as comedic relief, a goofy and good-natured soul to contrast the more grim and serious Celila. Which is not to say there's no depth there, because we've certainly seen glimpses of it in the past, but I feel like the major defining element of the character is plainly laid out in this issue. After shaking off the dehumanizing propaganda of the Agorian government, Derek sees the Zertonians for what they really are, people, and he witnesses their suffering firsthand in issue number 6. This experience changes everything for Derek, though it may not be obvious at first. I would argue that throughout this second arc, we've seen some of Derek's more reckless impulses become even more amplified. This is often played for comedic effect and is even somewhat cringeworthy or maybe even slightly irritating at times, like Derek exclaiming that he's a hero before getting trounced by Proximus in issue number 8. But here's the thing. In this issue, we learn that Derek's goofy demeanor and self-sacrificing actions are covering up some serious guilt. As he says to Celila, "Battling it out with you over a water-rich meteor was okay when we were bitter enemies. Knowing that your people not getting that water likely resulted in Zertonian deaths, it haunts me." Similar to Hot Rod's character arc in the animated movie, Derek bears a heavy burden as a result of his actions, and it informs a desire to redeem himself. This compels him to essentially commit treason by providing the Zertonians with Springer's instructions on how to refine and use Energon. I feel like this is a watershed moment for the character, both in our understanding of what makes him tick, but also in Derek finally finding a purpose and an outlet to do what he so desperately wants to do, which is help people. He's no warrior. In fact, this arc has gone to great lengths to show that Derek isn't much to write home about when it comes to fighting, highlighted by Springer's commentary in this issue. Which raises the question of how he is able to best Celila in issue number 1, but that's a consideration for another time, perhaps. While he's maybe not much of a fighter, Derek's other skills, like his sociableness, courage, and compassion, offer him a chance for catharsis, an opportunity to put some of his personal demons to rest. That is, assuming giving the Zertonians the gift of Energon goes as intended. As the saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, so this act may end up having more of a parallel with Hot Rod leading the Quintessons to the Sacred Ring than it appears. Let's just say I don't exactly trust Zalalak or the Zertonian government to do what's best for the people. And I mean, Proximus is right there. Can you imagine that dude all hopped up on Energon? Talk about total disaster. But that's all I have for the 11th issue of Void Rivals. This was a great read. The series is really taking off now, and I can't wait to see how the second arc concludes next month. Let me know your thoughts on the video, the issue, and what you think is going to happen next. Who's that little robot dude with the cape work for? And what is Skuxoid's new mission? Let me know your theories in the comments, and hit the thumbs up button if you liked the video. Thanks for watching. It's always appreciated, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.